What's up, everybody? Nick Powell's publisher of 1851franchise.com here with another episode of Meet the Zor. Today, we are talking DivaDance. Coming up next. All right, Jami, we're going to start with the basics. How did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise story?
Yeah, it is kind of accidental, but nothing's really by accident. So I started, when I was a child, creating choreography and dance routines in my bedroom and at slumber parties. And who knew that, many years later, I would turn this into a now internationally franchised brand. So the story came really as I was looking to exit my career in the music industry. And I had this little hobby business. I was teaching my own classes that was really welcoming and inclusive to all levels, no background of dancers required, just, folks who really loved and dance is such a lifetime sport, folks who wanted to keep that in their life. And we're different than a follow the leader style Zumba or Jazzercise or other awesome dance fitness programs. I wanted actual choreography. So looking to transition out of the music business, I was tired of making rappers and pop stars rich and famous, and looked at my hobby business and said, you know what, this needs to be in more cities. Let's see what we can do with this. And so franchising was the model I chose, and it's been just an awesome decision ever since.
All right, so you create the concept. Are you doing it out of your home at that point?
I was renting studios. I was living in New York City at the time, and I was renting from existing studio spaces. And this is actually an important part because even now, as part of our franchise opportunity, I don't require my franchisees have their own brick and mortar studio. They can rent from existing spaces, which actually helps other small businesses as well.
Okay, so you're renting these spaces. You have your one unit going.
Well, unit is a pretty big word for what
you have your hobby business going.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious. I mean, franchising a business is not a cheap venture. At what point did enough indicators show you that you are ready to invest in this? And then, secondly, at what indicator made you say, okay, I'm ready to quit my job and this is my thing?
Yeah. So one indicator was that I was starting to offer in New York City private parties. So bachelorette groups, birthday parties, girls' night out. And we were finding that a lot of folks were traveling to New York City for their girls' weekend or their bachelorette party, and they were booking our parties. And those gals were super validating to me because they were saying, man, I wish we had this in, insert other city. And I always kind of blew it off like, no. This is just in New York. This is just my hobby. This is just for fun. Until I had a moment, when I'm looking again, like, trying to exit the music business, I'm like, but what if I could, like, rather than dismissing people that want to bring, think DivaDance would be great in their city, like, what if I just looked at this from a different lens? And that's when, my father's been part of the franchising industry for many years. I grew up in Waco, Texas. He wasn't part of the Neighborly brand, but a different brand based there in Waco. And so obviously, as you do, I called my dad and said, do you think I could franchise this? And, he connected me with some really special people within his network who, speaking of the investment, they really worked with me. I didn't have a lot of capital. I started the business with $10,000 in the bank, which was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, and the individual who helped me and my attorney at the time to help me franchise really worked with me. I mean, he gave me a very long-term payment plan with him and deeply discounted his services because he truly believed, he's a great friend of my dad. And after I explained to him the mission of DivaDance, he was all in to help us.
Do you quit your job right when you franchise?
Absolutely not. Yeah. Honestly, I worked basically 2 full-time jobs for many years. I didn't pay myself. Every dollar we made within DivaDance, and I say we, it was me. I didn't really have any support or other people helping me, except for a couple folks on a super, super part-time basis just to, to help me here and there. I kept consulting in the music business. I consulted with record companies, artists. I worked with brands. I mean, I really had 2 full-time jobs for at least 2 years while I was franchising. And then I've tapered that off. In the last 3 years, I've been fortunate to not have to take on anything like that. But no, and that's my advice I'd give to any entrepreneur. Like, keep consistent income you have as long as you possibly can.
So what year did you franchise the business?
I started franchising in 2017. That's when I awarded my first franchise. We did all of our paperwork and everything in 2016.
Got it. I mean, it's quite a journey, and here's what I love about your story. And you said this even with how you treat franchisees today, which we'll get into that. But almost every franchisor, I don't think I could use almost in every in the same sentence, but I just did. But they start from a place of bootstrap. And then when they create the business, they go like take a restaurant brand, bootstrap, 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 and then they go, hey, franchisee, it costs $700,000 to open this thing. And I think oftentimes franchisors lose grip on that term bootstrapping. Yet we're going to ask a franchisee to invest their life savings into it. And you say, look, I have 10 grand. 10 grand can't pay a franchise fee.
Right.
So what happens is franchising dismisses so many individuals that need a break.
Yes.
My consultant was willing to work with the financing. And now I hear, okay, well, part of our model is we're not going to require them to own a studio. We're going to let them bootstrap, scale up. And that's such an important part that tends to be eliminated from franchising because fees are so high and costs to get in are so high.
You know, some people you're so right about this, Nick, and people are picking up on it. I heard about a beauty and personal care brand recently that is allowing their franchisees to operate out of like a salon suites before they have their brick and mortar. And I love it. Like, it's so smart to build your client base, build the brand, build the relationships in the community. And that's exactly what my franchisees do. The other thing is I do offer in-house financing, which, some franchisors are like, what, why would you do that? Obviously I don't help them with their working capital they need, but I'll finance their franchise fee, especially for a great owner who, I know as soon as they get in the business, they're going to do awesome. And we're going to see those royalties coming in. So I absolutely will offer that for a qualified candidate. I've done that for several people who wouldn't have been able to have access to our business otherwise.
Love that, because then you're investing in the grit and the hustle of the individual, not letting the capital wag the dog. I mean, like, ultimately, I started our business with 10 grand in the bank. Again, like, it's just fascinating to me that so many brands that have that entrepreneurial spirit or the grit, hustle, bootstrapping eliminate it so quickly from the opportunity. And I agree on financing the opportunity too. I think there's two issues that appear in that. One is in a broker centric world, a broker could be taking $30,000 fee. Therefore, there's no more capital back to the franchisor, so it's really hard to finance that. And then on the other side, a franchisor that can look at the bigger picture can see that there's a lot more money in the royalties that are going to come in. So why not give someone a break? And that means you're betting on the jockey, not on the horse. So
I love the way you phrase that. So first of all, I have never used brokers. I'm not opposed to it. We just have never had to. So certainly, something for us to consider in the future as part of our growth strategy. I haven't had to, and we haven't. The second thing is, you're right. Like, definitely, I've had a few advisors along the way say you really shouldn't in-house finance because you need the cash from your franchise fees, especially early franchisors. You do. But what I did instead was I built company-owned units, and I let my company-owned units kind of supplement my cash flow as we've grown, so that I can continue to offer, some really great prospects the opportunity to get into the business.
What's the cost to get in right now?
Yeah, so our franchise fee is $36. And then I'd like for them to have about 15, 20 in working capital above and beyond that. And they will need more if they do decide to go with kind of our the option to have their own brick and mortar, to put in floors and build out in their mirrors, et cetera. But it's we're still listed on entrepreneur low cost franchises. So
do you feel, and this is going to be a leading question, but I love, like, your story is great. You kept your job, built something else up. I like when that happens with franchisees because in my opinion, operating capital is really salary replacement so that you have enough cash for the rainy days and you're not feeling overwhelmed if you were to quit your job. But your story is so good, and obviously it's just starting, but like, the widget doesn't necessarily have to be a low cost widget. You could cross apply the same philosophical philosophies on franchising to anything. Do you feel like, are you dreaming bigger than DivaDance right now, or you're like, this is what I'm conditioned to do?
Man, I mean, I definitely I want to take the brand as big as I can, but as big as I can. And so I definitely, I think a good franchisor also, good founder at least, they know when they've taken it as far as they personally can. I'll always be the founder, but in the future, if there's a person or entity or partner that makes sense to bring into the mix, I'm always open to that. It's going pretty well so far, but definitely, we have a lot of blank. I have a map. I'm actually looking at it in my office here of stickers of where all of our franchises are. The map is still pretty sparse, even though I feel like we're pretty big with 47 units. There's still a lot out there, and that's just the United States map I'm looking at. So, my true vision that Diva Dance can change lives all around the world, which may sound a little Girl Scoutish, but it's true. I mean, we're reading so many things about how dance impacts mental health. It creates community, which has huge impacts on your life. There's so many things. Dance, like I said, is a lifetime sport. It's not something it's not a fad. I'm not a trendy boutique fitness brand that has its moment. We know we're going to be a part of people's lives for the long haul. So whether I'm at the helm of that in the CEO seat or not remains to be seen.
Do you guys have an item 19?
We do.
What do you report in that?
So I report gross revenue. I report owner type. So part-time, very part-time, full-time, or very part-time, and that's owner reported. I also report whether they're company owned or franchise and what year they started. So that's my item 19 as of today. And there's so many ways you can do it, but that's what we've done so far.
So take someone. It's hard to ask a question. Give me some of the gross numbers as it relates back to investment.
Sure. So my highest performing units are all full-time owners. Either they themselves are full-time or they have a full-time team. So like in Austin, for example, we have a full-time manager, gets a manager's salary. So I consider that a full-time unit, even though, we don't have like one owner that's their unit. So Austin's my highest grossing unit, does close to 300,000 a year. Really strong unit for us, strong in all three verticals. And, that's already trending way even ahead. That's of 2023. And it's already trending way ahead for this year. And so what's exciting is that even my highest performing unit has not even peaked. So it's still seeing growth. I think February of 2024, we had our highest revenue month ever in Austin. Sure. So yeah.
Well, the data is always fascinating to me, but the challenge that you go through, and it sounds like you're solving that in the way that you're disclosing the numbers, but it doesn't necessarily solve who you're saying yes to as a candidate. Part-time versus full-time is such a vast swing.
Yes.
I mean, it's a tough scenario because what is potential for a franchisee, but I'm sure for some of the franchisees with 40-something, there are some that they like the lifestyle side of this. It's not going to be a full-time hustle for them.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's effort. This is why it's owner reported, because my full time might look different than we've all read the 4-Hour Work Week, and so by some accounts that is part time, but some people can get a full time's worth of effort into a 4-Hour Work Week. So now I don't recommend franchisees think that Diva Dance is only a 4-hour a week commitment, but everybody's a little different, in terms of like your output.
Does that change the way you qualify the candidate? Your personality seems very, very, very loving and welcoming. But obviously on a business side, you want more of the people that are like that 300 mark. I want to see that. I want to surpass it.
100%.
But you have compassion. So you're like the person that's like, look, I want to try something. Like, is it hard to have the governor of who to say yes to and who to say no to?
It is and it isn't. I mean, number one, I care about owner culture. So I only want to bring owners in who are going to elevate the culture of my owner. My owners are kind of they have their own culture. And I take that super seriously. So I want to make sure we're bringing in people who are going to advance the owner culture. That's first. Second, they have to be able to follow the system. You hear this all the time. They got to be able to follow the system. And then obviously that values alignment, and they have to be excited to be in a people business. And then finally, they have to be able to build culture within their own communities. And then I really match it up with their own goals. So I do have a minimum performance requirement. So I have a minimum royalty and I have a minimum performance requirement. So, as long as they're achieving those minimum performance, everything above and beyond that, really, I care about their goals as people. So we do a lot of vetting in the process and getting to know really like, what do you want this business to be for you? Really freedom and flexibility and financial abundance, and purpose. Like that's what I hope that they want. But financial abundance means something different to everybody. So I really just try to match it up with what do they need, what do they want, and do we truly think that this can be a good alignment between us? I've turned away a good number of folks who just that alignment wasn't totally there.
Is it also pass the beer test, no assholes?
Well, definitely the culture. I mean, it's funny how people are. Whenever I talk to them about being in the people business, and a couple people are like, "Oh yeah, no, I hate managing people." I'm like, "Well, you're gonna hate this business because it's not so much about managing employees; it's about building culture with people." So, we are absolutely a people business, and they have to be super on board with that.
Do you guys do discovery days?
Sort of, we do. I don't do like formal, like open cattle call ones. It's very, very select hand invite, or we'll get them to a nearby location. So we're now in a good number of cities that, it's whether it's Atlanta, Austin's my headquarters. So it just kind of depends on the time of year and where it kind of geographically that person is. Or the other thing too is that we do have a large number of franchisees that come from within our existing community. So these are people that they don't necessarily need to discover the brand. They just need to know more about the business opportunity. And those are folks are even harder to vet because as much as I know that their heart is in it and they would love being a business owner, I don't know that they have totally what it takes or they don't have totally the access to the capital they need. So that's why I say it depends because a lot of our owners, 50% of my owners are from within the DivaDance community.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's probably in franchising the value of a $30,000-ish franchise fee. And I mean, you obviously are willing to finance it in select scenarios, but it means like you're not just going to limp into this. You got to take some of it seriously because that's a big enough number, especially for someone that hasn't built up wealth, to be able to say like, I know I'm going to have to hustle because if I want to earn this back, I gotta work for it.
Absolutely. And I made the same mistakes that every early franchisor does, where there's definitely, and people warned me about this, and I was like, I won't do that. Early on, you're like, you really need those franchise fees, or you really need to grow. So you may say yes to people. And I remember being like, I would never do that. Well, I definitely have a couple who over time, like we help them transition out of the business. And, I am very relationship oriented and I do deeply care about people. So there have been a couple that I'm like, man, I messed, this was not the right person for this business, and we helped them transition out. So every any emerging brands or any early franchisors, like even if you say you won't do that, you will.
Well, it's hard because if someone's willing to invest their life savings into your business, then to be able to say no to someone becomes even more difficult because that means they have to be a fan of the brand.
Yeah,
and so they're saying like, I'm a fan.
Especially early when you're like, man, I just need to I remember telling my husband when I started franchising, I'm like, if I can sell one, I can sell 1,000. Like I knew if I could just get a one on the board, and then to get that first, I'll never forget the day we awarded our very first unit, and who I have since transitioned out of the business, and we have since sold the unit, and now it's a great situation. But like those early ones, you just want to you want to put numbers on the board so bad. But no one was like a complete miss for us. It just, and we were still figuring some things out early on too, that I think even some of those owners, if they came in the system now, they might even be better equipped to succeed.
Yeah. Well, look, in hiring someone where there's no hiring someone for a job, there's no exchange. They're not paying you to get a job, and employers get it wrong all the time.
Well, people in the discovery process of a franchise, it's like, dating or job hunting. Like people don't always represent themselves. We definitely do a lot of vetting, and, I don't call like references or anything because I don't know how much I believe in like you just giving me the people who are going to say good things about you. But, we do background checks, and they fill out a very comprehensive, I call it my homework document. It helps me get to know them really well, really quickly. So, we do assessments, we do all the things, but people can still, I don't think anyone's ever people aren't deceptive. They just, they want to be perceived a certain way. And I respect that.
Give me the two things as we go through closing here. Give me candidates watching this. What else do you want them to know about the business opportunity? And what is your vision for the business here on out?
For folks looking for to consider DivaDance, I mean, listen, this is such a great time to be part of our brand because I mentioned, I'm looking at the map. It's a wild west in many parts of the United States. So really, really exciting opportunity for folks who are, they want to be part of a movement. And we're at a beautiful spot where people can still contribute to our growth and be part of an explosion. But like, we got it together. We have great systems. We have great training. We've got a great marketing playbook. We've got a great brand. Like, we've got an amazing team here. So that's something I would say. Now is a really exciting time to be part of the future of our brand. That's honestly, like, I don't even need to say anything else. Like, that's really the main thing, because the timing is everything.
I love it. Well, look, the culture of your story, the culture of your presentation, what you're trying to accomplish, being willing to be self-aware and say, hey, we've made some mistakes and we're trying to get better. I think all those are qualities of a great franchisor. It doesn't matter what widget you're selling. Here you're selling something that, in my opinion, is deeply important back to children, which is confidence building.
Yeah.
Beyond anything else, and obviously even when it's choreographed, it's following a system. Which later on in life, if you're going franchising, watch all these DivaDance customers are going to be franchisees someday because you trained them on it. I think you're doing a lot of the right things, and I appreciate you sharing some of your story with us.
Thank you. And as a reminder, we're really only for adults at this point. So I mean, in the future, even when we offer, if we were to offer to do a brand extension, tons of opportunity there as well. So
Yeah,
very exciting.
I love it. For Jami, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor. Take care.